Hey guys. So we are typing Mark Sisson this week. So Mark is in the health and fitness area. He has this daily blog that he's been keeping for I think like several years, called Mark's Daily Apple. And so he blogs about health and nutrition, focusing on like the paleo diet, and he's also heavy into the ketogenic diet. And he talks about just like research and basically sensory information on like general health and fitness. So I've actually been aware of Mark for a while. I got into his blog maybe like a year ago or so when I got into ketogenic diet. So I know Mark and I'm pretty familiar with him. So I actually already have somewhat of a decent idea of what his type is, just without, watching anything of him. So first of all, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that he's probably ST. Some kind of ST. He is just all about sensory information and how that sensory information works. And his sensory information is just like kind of amazing. That's why I really liked him, actually, is because he digs into the literature, and it's so accurate. It's so sensorily accurate. So his sensory is just absolutely amazing. And his whole life is in the sensory world. Even that he's into like health and fitness and like food products, and he's into sensory things. So I highly, highly, highly suspect that he is sensory. And then I also suspect that he's thinking over feeling. So just listening to his language, it's not feeling language. It's, how things work language. That coin, so I'm going to have to watch his videos and confirm that, because turns out that coin, thinking versus feeling, is actually like my worst coin in terms of like accuracy. So I'm going to have to watch that pretty carefully and make sure he is thinking over feeling, but I highly suspect he is. And then also OI over OE. So this one I'm also going to have to confirm, but in just kind of knowing who he is and how he sort of like runs his life, he does the same thing. He's done the same thing for years and years and years and years and years. He's run his blog for years. He does the same shit, He's OI, I think. So that's actually what I feel pretty confident on, and that crosses off a lot on the board. So I've already narrowed him down to one of these four kind of areas. And then I also kind of suspect that he's a single decider. I'm less sure about that. But just the way he talks about information feels very much double observing. Again, that's one of the things that I really like about him, is that he's just so good with the information. I mean, just so good with the information. So suspect single decider, but I don't know. And then also he's not blast last, because he teaches in a savior state, just teaches on overdrive. Oh my God. And then he's not very extroverted. He's a little bit more introverted, so not sleep last. So that's kind of just what I'm suspecting. And I think what I'm going to need to go after is the TE versus TI coin. If he is one of these four types, which I'll have to confirm that and watch videos and yada yada, but I think I'm going to be stuck on TI versus TE. That's really like he's, some kind of introverted ST blaster. That I feel fairly confident on. But then, is he a TE blaster or a TI blaster? That I really don't know. If he were a TE blaster, I kind of suspect he'd be in this area. So actually, maybe even this area. So it might be hard to actually see him as TE, because I know these playlast, especially if he's a playlast EJ, the playlast EJs could be hard to nail down. So that's kind of going to be the coin that I'm going to go after the most.
All right, so first, just a little bit of background about how Mark got to where he is in life. So Lewis Howes is going to ask him about how he got here, and Mark is going to tell a very, sensorily story about it. Let's see.
You've been in the fitness nutrition space for 30 plus years. Is that right?
Yeah.
30 plus years, originally teaching people about health and nutrition. You wrote a book a year. You've got tons of books. You've got coaching and courses and supplements. And then when you hit 61, something changed.
Yeah, it was, I think in retrospect, it was the natural order of things. It was a natural evolution. But I started out, first of all, I started out as an entrepreneur in my youth, right? And I was always an entrepreneur. And in my 40s, I decided I want to get into supplements. So I started making a line of supplements that was quite successful for a while. And
in your 40s?
In my 40s. I was 40. I tell my kids I was 47 when I finally decided what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of a DE anecdote. I was 47 when I first decided what I wanted to be when I grew up. Possibly DE-ish.
So I started this line of supplements. It's doing very well. And it was based on a model that was using television, my appearances on television as an expert, sort of driving traffic, right? We talk about.
Okay, so that's kind of sensory and intuition. Like here's, what I was doing is I was on TV selling supplements, but kind of the general idea of what was going on using, just a general model of television, like not digging into the sensory a lot. So kind of seemingly using both sensory and intuition.
About exercise and diet and fitness and all the things that I know about. And oh, by the way, I had these awesome supplements over here. You should try them. Very low-key sales approach, but it was quite effective and successful.
Sure.
A few years into this
So effective and successful. It worked well.
strategy, the model just died up. Just dried up. And
model meaning like driving traffic from TV.
So again, intuition, the model dried up. And then Lewis Howes is like, wait, what is exactly the model? So intuition, here's what happened. Or like the general gist of what happened, what was going on.
Through TV, yeah. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do to resurrect my business? I had grown this business 4, 5, 6% a year for several years. It was crazy.
Okay, so lots of sensory. And ST, what am I going to do to, here's the sensory, what am I going to do to fix it?
And then all of a sudden, the television model of infomercials and sales based on TV appearances ceased to work. There were 300 cable channels. There was Dish and Direct. The internet was starting to become a thing. People were buying on the internet, and fewer.
So that's thinking and sensory and intuition. The model didn't work, and then here's some sensory. Here's the 3 models that were available, and then he used some intuition about, I forget exactly what he said, but kind of the general idea of I guess people were going to the internet, I guess, kind of a thing.
Fewer and fewer people were willing to pick up the phone and call now, in the next 30 minutes and get this and this. So I pivoted in that first year that I realized things were going south. And I thought, well, I'll do my own.
So not too much weird energy around pivoting and shifting.
TV show. And I'll direct, because I was buying time on other people's shows.
Yeah.
I'll produce and direct my own show. I'll star in it. I'll buy time on TV, and everything will be great.
What year was it?
So again, I think that's thinking. Like, I'll do this thing and then this will work. I think that's the thinking component.
2005.
Okay,
So 2005, I did a TV show called Responsible Health. And I shot 52 half-hour episodes.
Wow.
Each one unique. Each one had, I had a very competent co-host, female co-host. We built a set.
Sorry, why do you need to bring up the fact that she's female?
I had guests, 3 guests every show, guest experts. And I tried to use
So lots of sensory, very good on the sensory and remembers dates, can pull that up quickly.
the advertising breaks to sell my products.
Gotcha.
It was what we call a self-liquidating program.
So it was free content.
Yeah.
And then selling something.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And I bought time on Travel Channel. So you could see me on Travel Channel every morning at 8:30 across the country.
Wow. 52 half-hour slot.
52 half-hour episodes.
That's a lot of.
So Lewis Howes is really like asking him for this. So this is the sensory, this is the sensory, and then wait. So is this what was going on? And he's easily giving him the sensory and easily giving him the intuition. So seemingly able to do both fairly well.
No, it's a lot of content. Very expensive.
Wow.
And at the end of several months of doing this, I'd lost $1.5 million, and I thought, well, I better pull back. I have a wife and 2 kids that I have to feed. I can't be, throwing more money into this. And so I started my blog in 2006 based on that failed experiment on television, knowing that I was good at creating content. I could produce this content on exercise and nutrition and health and medicine and diet and everything people want to know about. And I had a unique sort of perspective about it. So I started Mark's Daily Apple in 2006. And
again, just so good with the sensory.
Again, ostensibly to use as a platform to sell my supplements.
Right.
And I did that for a number of years, and it was relatively successful. But over the years,
so again, the thinking, I did this for a while and it worked.
The topics became more and more about food and about diet, and less about the other tangential peripheral aspects of performance.
So seeing the pattern over time, in general, the topics became more about food and less about, something else. So seeing the intuitive pattern, but also sounds a little bit like that was a discovery. It's not like obvious that, of course, the pattern was that they became more about food. So not super obvious on the intuition, but definitely the intuition is there.
So as I'm writing more and more about food and posting recipes, and I'm writing cookbooks, and I'm doing DIY recipes on how to make your own mayonnaise and your own ketchup, I realized I'm talking about food. And I'm writing.
Yeah, I realized I'm talking about food. I realized there's a pattern here. Discovery of intuition.
About food. And I'm focused on food. And what I'm focused on most is a concept of clean eating, of getting rid of sugar and refined carbohydrates, and getting rid of industrial seed oils like corn oil and canola oil and soybean oil, and just incorporating healthy fats, clean source of protein, and minimal sugars and carbs. But when you distill that list down, it's not a lot of food. There's really not a lot of food you can eat. So what makes the difference is how you prepare it. Sauces, dressings, toppings, herbs, spices, and things like that. So I thought, well, there's an opportunity, because no company is making like a great mayonnaise or a great ketchup or a great salad dressing. There were a few that were trying to dabble in that area, but they didn't fit my criteria, my specifications for what was a really clean dressing.
Okay, so I think that this to me sounds like TE, or just, I guess, the DE spectrum, seeing what other people are doing on the spectrum and then seeing where he fits into that. So I'm trying to decide between TE and TI for him, and the way he's seeing the spectrum of what other people are doing does sound a little bit more like TE to me, and not so much like TI.
People would feel good about putting on their salad.
And that's why you just started making them from scratch on your own and showing people how to make them.
Yeah, I've been making them from scratch for 20 years because
I've been doing the same thing over and over again for 20 years. Possibly OI?
Didn't trust anything that I could find in the store. Wow. So that's always been my...
Because I didn't trust anything that I could find in the store? I don't know. I wonder if that's indicative of something. I don't know.
I think. And then there was a point at which I thought, well, I've been... Just for my own... comfort and ease and convenience, I would rather buy these in a store, pre-made, and not have to get the blender out every night and clean the blender out of the oily substance that was in there and all the stuff that went with it.
So I don't want to do all the bullshit cleaning up and stuff. Is that possible sleep energy? Possible, I don't know, not OI? I would say the same thing too, so who knows?
So I put together an R&D team, and we spent a year looking at different iterations of mayonnaise and ketchup and salad. Wow.
So I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and yada, yada, yada. So using a lot of thinking, a lot of sensory, and a lot of intuition. Well, maybe not a lot of intuition, but a little bit of intuition. This is kind of just like an ST report. Well, actually, it's not, well... It's kind of an ST report, but there definitely is some intuition in there. So yeah, just confirms the thinker, definitely thinker, probably sensory. I'm definitely leaning SI rather than SE, but seems a little bit double observing, possibly. Now Mark is going to talk about pivoting and changing directions in his business to do a new thing and seize new opportunities.
Is, you really didn't figure out what you're doing until you're 61.
I might change my mind again at some point. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the beauty of it. It's. I think that the ability to pivot and see opportunity is probably the single greatest skill set that an entrepreneur can have.
So sounds a teensy bit like a discovery, the pivoting, but anyone can say that.
Right. To just not be so, and I can go back and I can say, that's a lesson I've learned so many times that once.
So it's a lesson he's learned so many times, which would suggest he is doing the same thing over and over again, and he had to learn to pivot and do new things.
I transitioned into the blogging thing, and I saw that my sales were not taking off commensurate with my traffic. I mean, I had one of the top blogs around. I had 3 million uniques a month.
And one of the top blogs around, seeing the spectrum of, that could be value or that could be, I don't know, TE working. But he's saying this thing didn't work anymore. I was looking at the spectrum and it didn't work anymore.
Mark's Daily Apple within a few years.
It's crazy.
And so you would think that the traffic would generate enough sales in the vitamin world, in the supplement business, and yet...
You would think that this thing would work. I know I thought that this thing would work, just looking at the thinking.
I kept, instead of taking a step back and going, okay, what am I writing about? Who am I writing for? What do they want to hear?
Instead of looking at the bigger picture of, that almost sounds like NEFE a little bit, like what people want to hear and the bigger picture.
And then what do they want to buy? I'm more like, I'm going to make this vitamin thing work. I had my blinders on rather than being open to the possibility that there's...
Okay, so he's saying I had my blinders on. I was looking at trying to make it work rather than looking at the possibilities. So that could be OI, or it could just be savior thinker, right? Trying to make something work rather than... it almost sounds like TI, trying to keep making the same thing work. So OITI, some kind of introverted energy and thinking.
There's another thing that I could do that would be much more successful than just fixing what I thought was broken in that original concept.
Interesting. So when did you start to listen to your audience and what they wanted the most?
I mean, I was listening all along, but I wasn't hearing, I guess. I don't know. Or hearing, not listening. I don't know what the appropriate terminology is, but...
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying he's demon consume, but anyone, like if their DI is locked on to doing something, anyone could not... hear information that could, penetrate. So that doesn't necessarily mean demon consume at all.
But there was a point at which, enough people had commented that for instance, how frustrated they were when we'd post a make your own mayonnaise recipe and it would fail. Because they would make their...
So he's kind of saying I was doing my own thing. Almost sounds like TI. I was dead set on fixing this thing that I wanted to do, but once enough tribe people told me that they didn't like it, then I pivoted. That sounds very much like TI.
When they would make their own mayonnaise...
Like, it doesn't taste that good.
No, it's here's a recipe, and it looks great when we show the video of it and everything, and it's all, frothy and whippy and everything else, and they make it and
clumpy and gloopy,
and it
runny,
exactly, and they throw it away. And it's like, and so a lot of people said, I wish you could just make a product like that.
Interesting.
Using those ingredients. So that was a...
But then he is also sort of saying, like, the tribe said that they didn't like it, or maybe it didn't work for them. The tribe said, I posted a recipe that said, here's how to do it. The tribe said, this doesn't work for me, and then he decided he was going to go and make a product and sell it in stores so that people could just take that product and use it. So that actually does sound like could possibly be TE. I listened to the tribe and saw that it didn't work for the tribe, so then I pivoted to make it work for the tribe, kind of.
But that's, look, again, as an entrepreneur, you have to always be ready, willing, and able to get the feedback from your customers.
How do you know when it's the...
So that actually sounds like a little bit of a discovery as well. Like, I wanted to do my own thing, but then you also have to learn to be able to get the feedback from customers. Sounds a little bit like a discovery of DE.
Another important lesson I learned was I didn't pivot away from what I was doing. I kept making the supplements. So I wasn't abandoning that as a bad idea as much as I was adding a new concept in the food space. So I didn't start a new company. I just added a new line of products to my existing company.
Mm-hmm.
So now I had this one company that was doing quite well and had been doing quite well. I shouldn't, put it down. It was certainly enough to retire on if I wanted to. But I wanted to, experiment in this food business. And so I started creating products using we talked about this.
Okay, so that actually does sound like TE. I was doing this thing over here, and this was working reasonably well, but I was looking at the spectrum of how well things were working, and then I had this other idea. He said concept, so that could be any, or it could be TE. I had this new concept over here that I then added in, and then I was doing kind of two things that were working equally. One thing was working better than the other thing. But I didn't abandon that idea. So that sounds like TE because it's looking at the spectrum of what's working, and it's not like going all in on one, TI idea that you're building your entire identity off of. So, just seeming a little bit more like TE than TI.
Well, there's two things that come to mind. First of all, the publishing, which started out great. Publishing was awesome. So I couldn't find a publisher for my original book, The Primal Blueprint. So I self-published.
Right.
And again, because I had
traffic in the blog,
the platform, I had a warehouse, I had credit card processing from the supplement business. All that stuff went very, very well together, and it was easy for me to do that. And then I found a third-party independent distributor who would distribute it to all the books. And this is back when there still was like Barnes and Noble and
Borders.
Yeah, exactly. And I could make, that was a couple $1 million a year in sales.
Wow.
And it was all, I controlled the price and I controlled the margins on it and I controlled the distribution, and it was fantastic. Well, I don't need to tell you, publishing it.
So he has this vibe of, I don't need to rely on the tribe. I can do everything myself, and I don't need to rely on other people to help me do anything in an easy, obvious way. So this is the thing that's giving me pause as typing him as TE, especially because I think that he might be a double observer, because I'm hearing sensory and intuition, and he seems so good with observations. He's just like, yeah, here's the facts, here's what's going on, here's the facts. It's just so easy with the observations. Makes me think he's a single decider. But then if he were TE, that would mean he's an EJ. But then he has this vibe of like, oh yeah, they didn't want to publish my thing, so I just did it myself, and then I did all these things, and then I controlled everything, and then I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and then, I guess I had to rely on other people, so I relied on other people. But most of the time, I was just doing my own thing. And there's no sense of like, it doesn't seem easy and obvious for him to rely on the tribe. It seems easy and obvious for him to rely on himself and just like, I guess I'll, rope the tribe in when I need them, but most of the time I just want to control everything myself and do my own thing and have my own blog where there's not a lot of people involved and just like my own thing. So he feels DI, but I think he's looking at the TE spectrum. So there's a contradiction there. I've wondered if he's maybe like a save your sleep EJ, and so that's why he's doing his own things so clearly and obviously and easily. But I don't know. This is the main contradiction that I have with him. He seems DI as a human need, but then I'm hearing TE, and he sure as hell is not Savior FI. There is no feeling talk here whatsoever. Like, he's a thinker on, like, just thinker to the extreme, So, yeah, that's the contradiction that I have for him. Not sure what to make of that right now. And then here's him talking about the tribe again.
The publisher, that was not my wheelhouse. Now, I have a great publisher that I work with, and so I continue to write books, and I work with Harmony Books, and they're fantastic, and we've had some amazing successes, and it's all great.
So I wasn't very good at doing that, which is publishing. So I worked with the tribe because I didn't have the skill set. So I outsourced it to them, and that's great. And I work with the tribe, and they're fantastic. Not in it with any weird energy around it.
For me, as a business person, when that was not my real wheelhouse, I took a step back and said, I need to focus my energy where it's best used to be successful in areas that I know about.
Right.
But the priority is focusing my own area or my own energy on areas where I have the skills. So again, that almost does seem like looking at the spectrum of skills, and putting yourself in that spectrum and just seeing easily and obviously, here's where my skills are, here's where other people's skills are. I have these skills, I'm going to do this. They have those skills, so I'm going to go work with them if I need to. Just easily and obviously. So that almost seems like double deciding. But he more so seems to be double observing. Like, that's not the double deciding that's like, oh, I'll kick your ass, I'll kick my ass. You know, criticize you, criticize me. That's just like kind of TE spectruming, I guess, a little bit. So yeah, I guess still kind of spinning on now double observing versus double deciding, and then also DI versus DE.
Started a chain of restaurants, a franchise operation called Primal Kitchen Restaurants, and it was a great idea, great concept. We were extremely successful out of the blocks, sold
Franchises.
18 franchises without having an operating unit.
Wow.
And just didn't realize that my lack of experience in the restaurant business, some other issues with the partners that I was working with.
Okay, so that's the only teensy tiny twinge of decider weirdness that I've seen from him. So I'm going to play this again.
Didn't realize that my lack of experience in the restaurant business.
So he has no weird energy when he says, my lack of experience. That's his own skills that he seems kind of, fine about.
Some other issues with the partners that I was working with.
And then that he just gets a little bit slower. Some other issues with, and then he looks down and kind of looks away, and some, issues with the partners that I was, working with.
Sort of combined to make it be a less than successful operation. So we had to dismantle that.
So then goes on to easily and obviously say what's going on. So I think that last bit he said there was kind of NT, like all those things combined to make us unsuccessful. So seeing there's all this sensory that happened, and then all those things combined to say, which is kind of like the intuition of like, here's what's going on, and then they combine to make us unsuccessful, and then that's like I saw that it didn't work. So again, using sensory and intuition very easily, seeing the external spectrum of things, external spectrum of what's working. It also seems like external spectrum of like NT a little bit, but I'm trying to make him into SINE. That's kind of why I'm thinking that, but definitely seems like spectrum of TE. And then that tiny little weirdness when he talked about, oh yeah, I had some issues with my partners that I was working on. People are like, maybe a little bit scary. So yeah, still thinking probably a decider. But again, like, does that mean he's an EJ? Like an EJ who doesn't ever rely on other people and does his own thing all the time? Like, I don't know. And now he's going to talk about people again, just a little bit.
You can't necessarily, unless you're Richard Branson, you can't have a success everywhere you go. I just sort of say that tongue in cheek because he's had his failures. But
he has.
But
didn't he sell Virgin the airplane?
Yeah.
And then just having to like say like, oh, I say that tongue in cheek, just so you know, because he has had his failures. Like just having to sort of explain why he's bringing up the tribe.
But I mean, yeah, he's like one of my
successful,
one of my,
and then kind of just wanting to like kind of anyways,
one of the guys that I would look up to and said that's a guy that I want to emulate, in my business life. So you can't always have a success. In fact,
so not easy when talking about people. It's like there are tiny little like weird energy things that he's giving away. Like God, I'm reading so much into this, right? Like, talk about like microtyping. I'm looking at teensy tiny little clips that I'm grabbing and looking at his energy. They're so small. But it does seem to be like the observations are easy and the people are ever so slightly less easy.
Right, so I've had some amazing ideas that other people executed on before it wasn't like I was going to do it and they beat me to it. It was like, yeah, that was a great idea, and I thought at the time it would be an awesome kind of thing, and somebody else, beat me to it. TRX is a great example of that. TRX is a multi-$100 million company, and it's
The workout ropes?
Yeah, it's workout ropes. It's like
You hang them over and you just do some push-ups?
every trainer I know, including myself, invented that in the 80s.
Right.
When we were working with clients. And clients say, I'm going on the road. I need something to, work out in my hotel room. But TRX, those guys they identified exactly what needed to be done. They marketed it brilliantly. They put a whole series of videos behind it. They did everything. The execution was, I'm going to say, flawless, on what was otherwise a fairly mundane kind of invention.
Yeah.
So how is that not TE, right? Just seeing the spectrum of ideas, the spectrum of what people are doing, and analyzing just easily and obviously whether what other people are doing works, why it works, and then just having, his ideas and then being able to throw those ideas away, not like going majorly all in on one idea and then like getting stuck like the TIs can do. So like that's gotta be TE, right? Seems like it just absolutely has to be TE. Even though I'm not seeing EJ syndrome, I'm not seeing major DE-ness, but I'm seeing I'm seeing TE. Lots and lots of TE and pretty much no TI. So I'm going to go ahead and call TE.
That's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge, and for me, it required me giving up this concept that I was the smartest guy in the room. So, my whole business career, I've been successful, largely based on my own work. Right? I'm doing the work. I'm in the trenches. I'm grinding it out. I know the contacts. I have the sensibilities here. And when I gave that up, partly because I was entering a space that I did not know anything about, I had to hire people from that industry who, were not only knowledgeable about the industry, but who had bought into the lifestyle and the concept that I was espousing. Because it's a major stretch to.
So sounds a lot like DI. I rely on myself. I do my own thing, and I had to learn to give up the idea of being the smartest guy in the room. Sounds like DI.
So I hired a team that I just said, I'm going to let you guys, I'll be the thought leader and I know where we're headed and I'm the visionary, but you guys.
So I'm the visionary, I'm the head. That sounds anecdotally kind of like DI. I want to be the top guy. I'm the visionary. Possibly DI.
Execute, because I don't know what I'm doing here.
Wow.
And when I gave that up,
but then I want you guys to do this because I don't know what I'm doing here. That actually sounds a little bit DE, possibly.
Stop micromanaging. It just took off.
Really?
So he says he was doing his own thing, and then he hired people, and he had to give up. He said I had to give up the idea of micromanaging. So micromanaging could be like almost TE blaster, like telling you what to do kind of thing. So is he saying I learned to rely on the tribe? Or is he saying I learned to give up TE blastering to the tribe? Not quite sure about that.
Yeah.
How did you learn to give it up?
I didn't learn to. I had to. I was forced to.
Because you couldn't do it all yourself.
I couldn't
you
do it all
couldn't
myself.
manufacture and do the food.
And I got to tell you that at some point, age drags a little bit of wisdom along with it.
Yeah.
And there was a point at which I just go, you know what? I just don't have the energy to be pulling the all-nighters and doing all this stuff myself and being on the phone, second guessing my operations people on the choices they're making. I'll just have faith and trust that I hired the right people, and that's the key. You got to hire the right people. So I would say,
do you know?
You have to. That's like for most entrepreneurs, I would say the single.
So actually, before he launches into that actually does kind of sound like DE. First time I saw it, it sounded like DI. I want to be the top guy, and I had to give up being the top guy and learn to rely on the tribe. That was my interpretation the first time around watching it. But now watching it a second time, it does sound like he's saying, I had to learn to give up control. I had to learn to stop TE Blaster micromanaging people. And he just said right now, I had to learn not to second guess the capability of the people I was working with, which sounds like that could actually be EJ syndrome. It could be frustration at the tribe because you rely on the tribe so much. Right when you're an EJ, you rely on the tribe so much. And it can be so frustrating when people are incompetent because it's like, I'm relying on you. So it could almost be like I had to give up the idea of micromanaging people because I'm frustrating at the tribe for not, being the competent tribe people that I need to rely on. And I had to give up, micromanaging people and second guessing people and thinking so much about people's skill levels and just trust the tribe to do their own thing. So it could kind of be that. And then now he's going to go into saying what he thinks the number one skill for an entrepreneur is. And
that's the key. You got to hire the right people. So I would
How
say
do you know?
You have to. That's for most entrepreneurs. I would say the single most important part of your job is hiring the right people.
Okay, so first of all, he deflects the question. Lewis says, how do you know how to hire the right people? He kind of doesn't really seem to have thought about that, so he might be stalling for time before he answers it.
And when you're an entrepreneur and you have reasonable success, you wind up, especially if you're a CEO, you wind up managing resources. You wind up managing money and people.
Yeah.
And that's your job. And then they take care of the actual business of business.
So still avoiding the question, he goes back to here's how this works, kind of in an NETE, here's how this works when you get into business.
So I think hiring the right people is key, and it requires time. I mean, that's, I talked to hundreds of people to come down to 5 that I really was convinced were the right people.
Were you wrong about any of them?
Yes. Yeah. There was one early one that I thought was going to be, the magic that we needed in the marketing department, and turned out not.
Ooh, a person was the magic that you needed. So yeah, just weirdness about relying on the tribe.
To be the case, highly recommended. Very affable, gregarious, out of the blocks. Just didn't work out.
Didn't work out.
Yeah, and that's we from day one. My minority interest partner in this, Morgan, who was my first hire, Morgan Bueller. She's now CEO of Primal Kitchen, a division of Kraft Heinz.
So must give you all of the sensory detail about this other tribe member over there.
We basically had a sign, no assholes. That was the big, important criteria in hiring for our company. No assholes. So
no assholes.
No assholes. No assholes. No assholes either. But
okay, so yeah, that is totally a single decider thing to say. No assholes, right? Because if you're a double decider, everyone's an asshole, right? And look at Lewis's house, okay, sure, why not? Yeah, that seems very single decidery. I will not hire anyone who's an asshole because that's maybe scary if you are a single decider.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it was like we would bounce hires off each other. And how do you feel about this? And is there a potential problem here? And once you put the team together and you work well with the team, it makes life so much easier.
Wow.
Once you can get the tribe on board, life is so much easier because your tribe issues are taken care of. Yeah. So again, still seems single decidery. So I'm more confident on single decider now. And what he said about hiring people, at first I thought was DI, but now it seems like could be DE. So it still feels weird to type him as an EJ, but I think I'm going the EJ route. All right, so I think that this is all I'm going to be able to get for Mark. I'm seeing just a lot of sensory. A lot of thinking, an oh my god amount of thinking. And I'm seeing a lot of what seems like TE in a savior state. So yeah, those are the things that I'm most confident on. And then I also think that he's OI and not OE. And I didn't really show too many clips for that, except, you know, like I've known of Mark's work for a while, and his work just screams SI to me. Like, even he has these like rules for like how to like live healthily and exercise, and he's very just rule based. So I think he's SI, but I don't know, maybe this whole week is like throw a dart at the board. You know, I'm not really confident on any of this stuff because there are contradictions, but I think he's probably savior SI. So that's what I have him as, and I highly suspect, well, not highly, I suspect he's a single decider, and a double observer, because that's what I'm hearing. But really, I feel like there are so many contradictions with Mark so this week I'm not confident in his type at all. Not at all, at all, at all. I'm seeing a lot of TE, but then he also seems very DI. I'm seeing, also, like, there's contradictions in his animals, even. So, okay. What I have him as is either play last or sleep last. I really don't think he's consume last at all. Again, that's just what I know of him, like, knowing his work. Like, his blog is like so detailed with, well, it doesn't have it right here, but his like literature is so just like good. You know, he consumes literature so well, and then just like communicates information in a way that's just like just so good. So I can't find, you know, where he has references and stuff, but he has other blogs where he's like going over like literature reviews and whatnot, and he references literature all, like, you can tell he's really okay. What I'm trying to say, sorry, I'm like just blabbering on, but what I'm trying to say is you can tell that he is really reading literature and he's not bullshitting about consuming. So like when he's going to the science, like to actually gather sensory information, he's not bullshitting his consume. I don't think he's bullshitting his consume. Maybe he is consume last, but I really don't think he is. So if that's the case, then he would be either sleep last or play last. And like, this sounds crazy, but I can't tell the difference between those two for him. You know, like, you think those are two ends of the extremes? So, like, you should be able to tell if someone's play last or someone's sleep last. Those are very, very different in terms of extroversion. I should be able to tell, but I kind of can't. Especially because he seems so DI. So then that would indicate he could probably be sleep last if he seems very DI-ish. But when he talks about his business and, like, how he tried all these businesses, he's like, play energy throwing shit at the wall, you know? He's like, he doesn't have energy issues. So he's like, I tried this business and then this business and then this business and this business. And he's not just like TE thinking about ideas and then not going and doing them. He's doing them. He's expending a lot of energy to do that stuff. Like, when he talks about like his life when he was younger, he was like play energy, expending a ton of energy all the time, like throwing shit at the wall, trying lots of new different types of businesses. He doesn't seem like the archetype of play last in terms of energy. But what I will say is, knowing his work and how he approaches like general health and fitness and longevity, he is all about doing the least amount of fitness for the greatest amount of payoff. So his whole like fitness regimen is centered around like minimize the amount of time that you're spending doing fitness so that you can kind of relax and enjoy your life and like just, yeah, like be happy, which is maybe his kind of FI a little bit coming out. But he's all about like just preserving your energy so you don't do more exercise than you need to do. And he's really, really, really narrowed it down in his little like primal blueprint thing. So let me see if I can find this. Okay, so I can't find, a good clip to show you about his like primal blueprint, whatever. But he seems like he's all about doing as little exercise as necessary to have the optimal health. So just trying to like optimize his activities, which seems like a very sleep thing to do. So it seems like that's probably not sleep last. But then in his younger years, it seemed like he was expending a lot of energy. And when he's talking, he seems like he has a medium amount of like extroverted energy. He doesn't seem Tony Robbins all the way cranked up, but he also doesn't seem like Margaret Atwood, who's like, so introverted that you can kind of barely hear her when she talks. So, because if he were here, then he would be Margaret Atwood / is it Bruce Willis that's here? Something like that? Play last? So he'd be in that category, and he seems more extroverted than them. But less extroverted than Ed Milet, but I don't think he's consumed last. So really, I mean, the animals are like all over the place, and then the DIDE is like, I'm getting contradictory vibes. So basically what I'm saying is I have zero confidence in my typing of him this week. And I don't know, this is kind of just throw a dart at the board, I guess, because so many contradictions. Yeah, but I mean, I don't think I can watch more of him and get more parts. So this is kind of what I'm going with. I'm excited to see what Shannon Dave type him as, though. I'm really curious to see what type he is, because I don't know, I'm all over the place. But yeah, I really like Mark. I'm super excited to see what Shannon Dave typed him, because I just think he's an awesome person, and I really like him a lot. So, all right, see you next week. Okay, so I do actually have another thought about this. I knew if I blabbered on enough about this, then some idea would come to me, and it has. So I'm kind of wondering if I'm putting the EJ struggles in light of FE rather than TE, because I myself am FE. So I'm hearing him say over and over again that he does his own thing, and he solves his own problems, and he's, just out there doing things on his own. And to me, I think like EJ syndrome is you can't figure out what you want to do, and doing your own thing is hard. But that might just be because my brand of EJ syndrome is with TI at the bottom. So if you're thinking at the top, so say if you're TE as an EJ, then running around doing your own thing may not be the same type of EJ issues associated with it. So him for TE at the top, it'd be more like I couldn't like understand what I wanted and what was valuable to me and what I loved. So he isn't talking about what he loves, what he values. He's talking about doing things. So he did his own thing, but it wasn't something that he was passionate about. So I think that it's possible that the reason it's so hard for me to type him as an EJ is because I'm just projecting my own functions onto him and saying, oh yeah, of course EJ syndrome is like you can't figure out what you want to do your own thing. But for him, it'd be like, can't understand what you love and value. So that might be why it's so hard for me to type him as an EJ. But either way, I'm seeing lots of TE and single deciderness, which still should be TE at the top. So I still actually have no confidence about this type this week. My confidence is like in the trash, but this is still what I've got him as. So anyways, that's actually it for this week. So bye.